Rain moves in and a sinkhole opens up. The impact on freeway traffic as stormy weather begins in San Diego. And headed for bankruptcy, the state's largest utility looks for a way out as it faces claims related to California's wildfires.
We together will win the fight for the soul of public education. Let's hear it for public neighborhood schools.
LA teachers go on strike, the walkout that's affecting more than 500,000 students.
You know, obviously people are buying these properties to make money. It's a business game, and this is America. You should be able to do that, right? But at the same time, though, you shouldn't be just like crushing people.
And after a defeat at the ballot box, can anything be done to keep rent prices from soaring? KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. San Diego is in the path of a series of storms that will bring significant rain this week. We are already seeing some side effects, including a large sinkhole that opened up this morning near the 805 freeway in Serra Mesa. California Highway Patrol closed the Kearney Villa Road exit, which slowed down traffic in northbound lanes. Aaron Calandra has a closer look at the storm and the potential for flooding.
Good evening. We certainly did see a wet pattern today. It's not over. We still have more rain on the way, and it's creating a lot of problems. We have concerns for flooding. You can see right now much of the county is under a flash flood watch. That means the ingredients are there. If you do come across a flooded roadway, turn around, don't drown. We say it all the time. That's very important information. Also, mudslides. That is likely, and also some pretty gusty winds. Right now, you can see the rain is moving in. Heavy downpours, the reds, the yellows, those indicate heavy rain. We're going to see about 1/2 to 1 inch of rain dropping per hour in some locations. Now, just today, once it's all said and done, we could see about 1/4 to 3/4 of an inch of rain in some locations. And the mountains, the west and southern sides of those mountains, you'll get slammed the hardest. Expect to see some flooding. Here's the future cast. You can see the rain comes down, but overnight, we do get a bit of a break.
When it rains, people living on the streets scramble to keep themselves and their belongings dry. And today, KPBS had a chance to ride along with an Alpha Project homeless outreach team to see how the nonprofit helps people keep dry.
Hello, hello. Is there anybody under this one too?
Yeah, his name's Brian.
Hey, what's up, Brian? Yeah, I'm gonna give them some plastic so they can cover up their belongings. That guy, he needs his wheelchair covered up. They tried to get into our shelter, but we don't have any beds. Put your apple juice on there. All right, bro, your stuff is covered. All right, man, have a good day, all right? When it rains real tough, you know, they have their, their sleeping bags or their tent or whatever, and it won't stop the water. So the plastic they'll use to cover up if they have cell phones, computers, or, a lot of them have cell phones and computers and stuff like that. So they'll use that to cover up their clothes, anything that's most important to them.
The mayor of Imperial Beach is worried the storms will make the cross-border sewage problem worse. The government agency that deals with the issue says a major pump station in Tijuana has been off since Friday. That pump typically pushes sewage to a Mexican treatment facility. When the pump is off, the sewage flows into the U.S.
And the river fills up with raw sewage, and the pump station's turned off, so that river starts flowing again. And it's got so much added raw sewage and sewage and toxic waste from 130 different sources that basically that river starts flowing. And until the runoff goes down, really our beach is pretty hammered. And if it keeps raining and then keeps raining, we have a situation where we could look at closures, at least at the southern end of the beach, for the rest of the winter.
Imperial Beach, Chula Vista, the state of California, the Port of San Diego, and the Surfrider Foundation are all suing the U.S. federal government to stop the cross-border sewage flows. The state's largest utility will seek bankruptcy protection. Pacific Gas and Electric announced the move this morning as it faces the potential of billions of dollars in liability claims. PG&E was already found liable for a series of fires in Northern California in 2017. CAL FIRE says a problem with electrical equipment was to blame. Now regulators are looking into whether a similar problem led to November's Camp Fire, which was the deadliest in state history.
I mean, I was in Paradise last week. I saw that destruction. I can't believe it. I mean, those people need to be protected. They lost so much. They lost everything in most cases. And so we need to protect them and make sure that they're not the losers in this.
Just simply writing big checks and throwing billions of dollars at a problem doesn't fix the underlying problems of our forest management, the underlying problems of electricity grid that is increasingly becoming unreliable and much more expensive for people to afford.
Also today, PG&E announced its CEO is stepping down. The utility serves 5 million households in California. Service will not be affected by the bankruptcy. President Trump says he doesn't want to declare a national emergency to fund a new border wall. The president made the comment today before heading to New Orleans last week. The president suggested he could make the declaration and use military money to build the wall. While in New Orleans, the president spoke at a farmers' convention and said his immigration plan would help them find workers.
I didn't need this fight. This is a rough fight. We're dealing against people who think that if they can stop me from building the wall, again, we've already done a lot of work, but they think that's a good thing for 2020 because they're not going to win. You know, when we have proper security, people aren't going to come, except for the people we want to come because we want to take people in to help our farmers, etc. Very important. We're going to make that actually easier for them to help the farmers because you need these people.
The shutdown is now at 24 days, the longest in U.S. history. Now that they have missed their first paycheck, federal workers affected by the shutdown need to figure out how to pay their bills. KPBS reporter Priya Sridhar talked to a local union leader about how they're navigating the unemployment process.
Leaders of the American Federation for Government Employees say many of California's 41,000 federal employees are looking into applying for unemployment benefits. The State Employment Development Department can pay eligible workers in 2 to 3 weeks after they file a claim. Depending on their salary, workers can get anywhere from $40 to $450 in weekly benefits. Once they get paid by their employer, however, any worker who received benefits will be required to pay back whatever they got.
These folks now see the writing on the wall. They're out getting food stamps, they're getting assistance, they're going to the unemployment office, they're seeking second jobs because they've got families to feed. You know, they've got bills to pay.
The union has also filed a lawsuit against the administration for damages to the workers during the shutdown. They say workers are not allowed to strike, so for now they're organizing rallies to try to make their voices heard. Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
San Diego researchers say the partial federal shutdown is not yet causing major disruptions of federally funded science. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has details.
The federal government officially closed on December 21st, and that could affect local research projects that rely on federal funding. Now, UC San Diego officials say the impact so far has been minimal. The Office of Research Affairs' Sandra Brown says the school is advising researchers to move forward with their federally funded projects until they hear otherwise.
Universities are designed to do the best science when there is continuity in the funding for the projects that they're doing. We cannot operate efficiently on a start-stop basis.
UCSD got more than $130 million in funding last year from a number of federal research agencies that currently have no budget authorization. The National Science Foundation, for instance, issued no new grants since the shutdown started in December. The American Society for Biochemistry and Molecular Biology says the foundation handed out more than 330 grants worth more than $100 million during the same time a year ago. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
More than 30,000 teachers, librarians, and support staff members are on strike in Los Angeles. Many of them gathered outside LA City Hall this morning. This is the first teacher strike in 30 years for LA schools. The district includes 500,000 students who will be taught by administrators and substitutes until a deal is reached.
Here we are on a rainy day in the richest country in the world, in the richest state in the country, in a state as blue as it can be, and in a city rife with millionaires, where teachers have to go on strike to get the basics for our students.
Comes after 2 years of contract negotiations. In addition to more pay, teachers want the district to hire more staff to reduce class sizes. In November, voters rejected an expansion of rent control. Now advocates are trying to figure out other ways to limit how much renters pay. As part of our coverage of the California Dream, KPBS's Amita Sharma says some mayors want state lawmakers to approve anti-price gouging rules.
Crooning in the shower is not Chad Verghesi's thing. That's why when he learned earlier this year his monthly rent would go up $300 so the new owners of his La Mesa apartment could upgrade his bathroom with a sound system, he was bemused.
$300 for, I mean, I think an iPod is like less than that. Everybody's got a phone now and like an iPod, you know. Everybody's got something. Like, who needs a Bluetooth speaker in their apartment? You know, it's weird.
This VA employee and surfer was also, as he puts it, bummed.
The amount it was going up didn't match, like, the condition of the apartment. If you're going to live downtown, you're expecting like a baller apartment, right? Like super nice stuff, vaulted ceilings. You're probably driving a Ferrari, so it's awesome.
But he felt powerless to challenge his new landlords on the rent hike.
I mean, who's going to tell him no? There's no rules to how far your rent can go up.
That's true in most California cities, and a statewide measure that would have allowed cities to impose rent control failed in November. Now, talk is underway about putting a law on the books that would bar California landlords from raising rent beyond a certain percentage.
Since it seems like rent control seems to give people pause, we are declaring that we have a housing emergency and that we are going to talk about anti-rent gouging regulations.
Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf said at a mayor's forum in November the rule would mimic current limits, barring businesses from raising prices by more than 10% during natural disasters.
Just like when there's a fire, you pass an anti-rent gouging ordinance. The state has had a fire. It's called a housing crisis.
At that same forum, Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti said voter rejection of a rent control initiative last year is no excuse for complacency.
It is not going to be good enough to just say, well, the voters spoke. We have a problem we have to confront.
Garcetti wants the state legislature to approve an anti-price gouging rent cap, and it appears backing of such a cap is building. Democratic State Senator Scott Wiener of San Francisco says legislators are mulling over whether to pitch a bill that would classify rent increases in the state as if they were occurring during an emergency. He says the state is short millions of homes.
That shortage is leading to displacement, evictions, people becoming homeless, working families leaving, young people not having stable housing.
Wiener says the obvious solution is to build more housing.
Until we get there, we need to take action to keep people stable in the housing that they have.
Landlords don't like the idea. Dan Fowler, president of the Apartment Owners Association of California, called the proposal for an anti-gouging rent cap welfare for tenants. Even housing advocates like Rafael Bautista of San Diego's Tenants United worry, but for another reason. He says the state still needs real rent control that restricts annual increases to 2%. He believes that the proposed anti-gouging cap is a ruse.
They're basically a watered-down version so that we don't pursue rent control, because they'll point to that and say, well, you know, we have these measures in place. Why do you still need rent control?
Back in La Mesa, Chad Verghesi thinks the cap would be a good start.
You know, obviously, people are buying these properties to make money. It's a business game, and this is America. You should be able to do that, right? But at the same time, though, you shouldn't be just like crushing people.
Verghesi moved out of his apartment following the $300 rent increase, but his new place just got new owners. And now he's nervous that could mean a new rent increase. Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
This story is part of our statewide California Dream public media collaboration. All of our stories are posted at kpbs.org. Affordable housing is a big part of Governor Gavin Newsom's budget plan. Over the next few months, state lawmakers will decide what makes the cut. KQED Newsroom's Thuy Vu talked with the chair of the Assembly Budget Committee, which is the first stop in the budget process.
What is your reaction to Governor Newsom's proposal?
Well, the initial reaction is very good. I mean, what he did was very fiscally prudent. We've been working at socking away reserves for a rainy day for a number of years, and you saw him do that as well as paying down debts and paying down pensions. So the bulk of the money is really used for one-time expenses that are fiscally responsible. It's a good start. What we're also happy to see is a couple areas we weren't able to reach agreement with Governor Brown on, which was early education, child care, health care, as well as in the human services, social services area. We're glad to see him really make some investments in that arena.
Were there other priorities that you were hoping to see included but were left out?
Well, I think the one area which we'll probably be dealing with in May is around wildfires. There's a little bit of money in wildfires, but really we need to come up with a much larger proposal on how to fix this systemic problem that we're dealing with every summer, it feels like.
The governor is also proposing a one-time expenditure of more than $1 billion for proposals for projects that spur affordable housing. You represent San Francisco, one of the most expensive housing markets in the country. Is there other relief that you think the legislature can do other than what the governor has proposed to help the middle class buy or rent a home?
Absolutely. If you look at many of the legislation that we're doing right now, I have a piece of legislation I reintroduced to streamline the building of accessory dwelling units, otherwise known as in-law units or granny units. It's some of the fastest way that we can get housing on the streets where people build in their backyard, or in San Francisco, they build out their first floor. We have cities, especially suburban cities, that are fighting that kind of development. We need them to stop. I've been working with Senator Wiener on getting affordable, more housing built near transit stops. That makes a lot of sense. So you're going to see the legislature continue to push very hard on cities to build more housing. We really can't.
I have to interrupt you because there is opposition, right, to the Wiener bill that you just mentioned, especially from suburban communities who don't want it legislated that they have to have a certain type of housing project or a certain number of housing units in their cities. And even though the Democrats now have a supermajority in the legislature, they are still Democrats from different types of communities. Absolutely. How much tension is there on an issue like housing? Oh,
there's absolutely a huge amount of tension. The previous proposal that Senator Wiener introduced that I co-authored was unanimously opposed by the Los Angeles City Council, which is not a suburb. The LA City Council completely opposes. So again, there's a lot of discussion, but here's the challenge. The more jobs you create, the people have to live somewhere. And right now we're getting to the point where we don't have enough housing to match the jobs that we're creating.
And speaking of tensions, not only on housing, but perhaps other priorities as well. You have California lawmakers who have lots of things on their list. You introduced, for example, a bill just this week that would require businesses to give electronic receipts, not paper ones, unless the customer requests a printed one. And with all those different priorities and different special projects, in fact, lawmakers have introduced bills that would require spending more than what the surplus is already in this new legislative session. How much tension do you think there will be between the governor and the lawmakers?
Well, I think there's a lot of agreement. You have a Democratic supermajority, you have a Democratic governor. So from the top line issues in terms of health care, fighting for immigrants, education, early education, you have wide agreement. Now, the devil's always in the details, and every legislator wants to make their mark. So many of those bills are, frankly, aspirational bills. And those are all items that we go when we discuss from a legislative point of view in committee, and then we also talk about them from a budgetary point of view. At the end of the day, you have a budget, you only have so much money, and you have to spend within your means. And so we have bills that are aspirational, that aren't just about this year, maybe sometime in the future, but we also have a budget that we have to pass this year by June 15th.
That interview is part of KQED Newsroom. You can watch more at kqed.org.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, more questions arise about the president's dealings with Russia as the government shutdown hits day 24. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
are we under a wet pattern? We had tons of rain today. It's going to continue through tonight, and because of that, we are under a weather alert. We're expecting some flash floods across California, and we are under a watch right now. We are seeing rain dropping by about 1/2 to 1 inch per hour in some locations. If you do come across a flooded roadway, turn around, don't drown. We say it all the time, but we also see people getting rescued out of their vehicles all the time, and we don't want that to happen to you. Here we are with the Futurecast. The rain was just pouring like cats and dogs today. Luckily, overnight, we are going to get a bit of a break. Couple of showers left over tomorrow until the next big system moves in. And not just us, all the way up to San Francisco, Los Angeles, getting heavy downpours today. Really, the coast is getting battered. And once it's all said and done today alone, we're going to see about 1/4 to 3/4 of an inch of rain in some locations, and the mountains will take the brunt of the storm. We're talking the southern and western slopes. You'll see the most rain and also the gustiest winds. So that could create, again, flooding and also travel issues. Be careful. Now, here is the satellite, and look at this. We have that heavy rain dropping. When you see the orange and you see the red, that indicates heavy downpours, and that is certainly what we saw, especially across the interior areas today. Taking a look at tonight, well, it is going to taper off. So heavy rain this evening. By tonight, clearer. 54 degrees for that temperature. Oceanside will see some showers. Ramona at 45 degrees. And in Borrego Springs, we'll see a temperature of 46. Tuesday, we have another storm coming in, but this one's going to track to the north. We are going to stay mainly dry. Can't rule out a couple of showers, but it should be a much drier day than today. Borrego Springs will even see some sunshine at 64 degrees. Another storm comes in midweek. More rain on the menu. Drier for the weekend with sunshine. That's the case inland as well. Temperatures will get up to the 70s by Saturday. In the mountains, Wednesday and Thursday, those are the umbrella days. And in the deserts, Thursday will be the wet one with drier conditions for the weekend. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra.
A federal judge has blocked a plan to allow more employers to opt out of birth control coverage. California, along with 12 other states and Washington, D.C., have filed a legal challenge. The judge's ruling blocks a move by the Trump administration rules, which was supposed to take effect today. At issue is a law in the Affordable Care Act, which requires birth control coverage at no additional cost. The Trump administration wants to expand certain religious and moral exemptions. Tomorrow is the final deadline for Covered California. People must sign up for their health coverage to begin in February. Officials with the state-run exchange say more than 1 million people who are eligible have not yet enrolled. This is the first year people can go without health insurance without paying a fine. Today, a South Bay city is starting to accept applications for legal marijuana dispensaries. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says 2 other cities in the county will begin accepting applications for dispensaries later this month.
This week, the city of Chula Vista is accepting applications for marijuana businesses. The city is allowing 3 retail locations per council district, 2 of which can be recreational storefronts. That's in addition to a number of cultivation, manufacturing, and testing facilities. Starting next week, the city of Vista will begin accepting applications for medical marijuana storefronts. A measure passed last November is allowing up to 11 locations throughout the city. Then near the end of this month, the city of Imperial Beach will begin accepting applications for 1 recreational dispensary. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Now here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom, the state of the city. San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer will deliver his annual speech Tuesday night. Morning Edition will cover some of the big topics he's expected to address. And on Midday Edition, social media and mental health. New research looks into how the time spent online can affect our decision making. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. And before we leave you tonight, you might have noticed a new look to our show. That's because KPBS has a new logo. This is the station's 7th logo in our 58-year history. The last time it was changed was in 1991 when KPBS rolled out the multicolored letters we've been known for decades. Now, we thought it would be fun to show you how our logo has changed over the years. A new logo for our modern times and the same great programming you've come to expect from all of us here at KPBS. Have a great night.